Have you heard of the Matterhorn? Well, just in case you haven't, it's only the most iconic mountain on the entire planet, besides Everest. The cool thing about the Matterhorn is that it's actually a rare type of mountain formed by a very specific geologic process. This means that there are other Matterhorns around the world that have undergone this same process and resemble the famous original. Today, I'm going to be visiting one of the world's best Matterhorns to try and learn how these remarkable mountains form. It is not going to be an easy journey, as Martha and I are going to have to be very careful around every corner because of the extremely high density of grizzly bears in this region. If we make it past the bears, awaiting us in the wilderness are raging streams, ridiculously blue lakes, and one of the most iconic peaks in all of North America, the Matterhorn of the Rockies, Mount Assiniboine. For the beginning of our adventure, we first have to drive deep into the backcountry to even get within walking distance. The Matterhorn of the Rockies is no easy mountain to reach. From most sides of the mountain, you're looking at minimum a 20-mile round-trip hike just to get a good view of the peak. From our side, the hike is shorter, but it does require hours of driving on remote dirt roads in mountain valleys just to reach the trailhead. I see this as a good thing, because these valleys are stunning, and the rivers carving them are already a vibrant blue. We are officially on the trail now, and we have to be really loud because we're walking through the trees. There's been lots of reports of grizzlies up here. The lady at the trailhead told us there have been several seen up this canyon lately. Not today, but recently. So we have to be loud as we hike through all these berry bushes, because of course we have to hike through berry bushes to get up to Assiniboine. It's a little scary. Out here in the Canadian Rockies, from what I can tell, they are much more common and strong in number. So we have to make ourselves known, because the best way to avoid a bad situation is just to never see the bear at all. And you can do that by being really loud, so they get scared and run away before they ever see you. Yeah, we're singing a tale. It's crazy how much water is coming down even this late in the year. Just roaring rivers. Really pretty though. So while we're hiking, I figured I'd explain what I was talking about earlier with the Blue River. Basically, the reason that river was blue, and a lot of the lakes up here are blue, is because of glaciers. When glaciers come down off the high mountains, they crush up rock. They grind it into a powder, and oh wow, hold up. We have a big pile of bear scat right there. I don't know how fresh that is, but yeah, fun. Got some huckleberries and pine nuts and stuff. These sections right next to the river and the berries are the most likely place for us to see some, so keep being loud. The glaciers grind up the rock into a fine powder as they come down off the mountain. And that powder, especially up in the Rockies where the rock is made of limestone, it sits in the water and it reflects the light, and that's what causes the blue color. For example, at Bear Lake in Utah, the same limestone has dissolved and been crushed into the water, and that's what makes Bear Lake so blue. And up here in the Rockies, we have the same phenomenon, except the glaciers are doing all the work. And so as they release that glacial powder or till into the waters, the rivers run blue. And then in these high mountain cirque lakes, you'll also get that blue color as the fine powder just sits in the water and reflects the light in a certain way. With differing amounts of that sediment, you get different shades of blue. And there are just so many gorgeous shades of blue out here in the Canadian Rockies. Up below Assiniboine today, we're gonna be seeing 2 different lakes, and I'm willing to bet that there are gonna be some brilliant shades of blue. So someone has kind of stepped on this print, but right there you can see a bear print. The claw marks are right there. Again, not sure how fresh that is. I assume since someone stepped on it, it's at least a day old. Here's some more tracks. You can see these a bit better. There's my hand for comparison, about the same size. And then there's a footprint here. That was a front leg we just saw. This is a footprint. Again, not sure on the species. It is a little curved. To tell the difference, black bears have a big curve and brown bears don't. I just can't quite tell with this one. I'm not experienced enough.
Just make them known that you're around. So that's what we've been doing.
So while we're walking down here in this valley still, let's talk about some bear protocol for grizzly country that Martha and I recently just read up on. So this is our first time hiking in serious grizzly country. We've been in places before where, yeah, they're there, but there's not tracks on the trail. Nobody's seen any in a while. They're very seldom seen. This area, it's the complete opposite, where it's definitely the norm for them to be around. I mean, obviously we're seeing tons of tracks. So anyway, what is the protocol? Well, you've all probably heard before, if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. And that is true in most cases. If a black bear does attack you, yes, you want to fight back. If maybe you just surprised it, you don't necessarily need to go straight to fighting it. A lot of cases, the best thing to do is just deter it. And with brown bears, which is what we're really worried about, yeah, if it attacks you defensively, say you round a corner and it's there, and it gets scared and attacks you, you want to lie down on your stomach, spread out your legs, keep your backpack on, and put your hands behind your head to protect your neck. This is because brown bears, when they're attacking defensively, they just want to neutralize you. They don't necessarily want to eat you right away. Usually, at a max of 2 minutes, they'll go away, they'll leave you alone. A lot of people go away unharmed because your backpack can protect you a little bit. However, we were reading up, and if you are in the opposite situation, which is a curious or predatory bear, you don't want them to just lay down and let it have its way with you. If you have a curious or predatory brown bear, you need to fight back because it is interested in you. It wants to find out if you're food or not. And that is the worst situation to be in. And very uncommon. So we're not really worried about that. The thing we're worried about the most is just running around a corner and running into something. That is the most common scenario and the most likely. Bears like to use trails too. They're convenient, they're easy. There's berries on the side, there's no sticks in your way. It's just easier that way. And obviously every bear is different, so really the best way is to just make noise and not encounter them at all. By far the scariest thing we read up on though is in the event of bluff charges. Basically what bears will do in a defensive scenario is they will literally charge you and you have to not move. That is the protocol. Because if you run or turn your back, it will activate the bear's predatory instincts, and that's not good. So you have to hold your ground as this 1,000-pound bear is barreling down at you. Just sounds terrifying. But the way to know if it's a bluff charge is if the bear is making a lot of noises and it's got its ears up. I think that's the most telltale sign. When a bear is aggressively charging, it pins its ears back, it gets low to the ground, and it just goes. But when it's bluffing, it's keeping its ears up. Yeah, you have to try to pay attention to that in the scariest moment of your lifetime. To anybody who has stood up to a bear bluff charge, hats off to you. Okay, we are now approaching a lake which should give us our first view of Mount Assiniboine. It is partially cloudy today, and Mount Assiniboine is the tallest mountain in this regional area, so it might be partially obscured, but if it is, I have some wonderful photos and Google Earth imagery to show you guys. So no matter what the weather is, we're talking about the science of this mountain today. Okay, we've made it, and it's not completely obscured. Just the very top of it is, but we can see the majority of the Canadian Matterhorn. Check that out. It's not this guy right here, although that is another pointy peak. It is that there. Beautiful. And I mean, this whole lake is just covered by a massive cirque of limestone walls. And that way as well. The other lake we want to see is up that way. So, what makes Mount Assiniboine a Matterhorn? As we know, we refer to a lot of mountains as Matterhorn. The Matterhorn of the Rockies, the Matterhorn of Iceland, the Matterhorn of South America. So many mountains get assigned the name Matterhorn. Of course, the real Matterhorn is in Switzerland, and it's a very famous mountain that has a very iconic pyramidal shape. And Mount Assiniboine here shares that shape, which is why we call it the Matterhorn of the Rockies. But to get a little more specific, what causes that pyramidal shape? Well, it's glaciers. Glaciers form a lot of common types of landforms when they carve up mountains. One of those is called a horn, which is what Mount Assiniboine is. It's what the Matterhorn is, and they form all over the place wherever mountains are carved up by glaciers. Horns. And horns are formed by cirques, which are another glacial landform. Essentially what a cirque is it's a great curve at the end of a glacial valley. So when glaciers start, they usually come high off mountain peaks like this one and form a U-shaped valley. And at the very end of them, we get this really big curve of mountains, kind of like an arena almost, or an amphitheater. And that is what a cirque is. So you can see this lake here at the end of a glacial valley, and we have this great wall of peaks around it. And so what happens is sometimes you get 3 or more cirques all starting in one spot. And that's what we have here with Mount Assiniboine. We have this cirque here, just over that ridge, there's another cirque. Just over that ridge, there's one. And then directly on the other side of the mountain, there's a couple of them. And so what happens when you have all these cirques coming together is it carves a very pointy mountain in a pyramid shape, like Mount Assiniboine, like with the Matterhorn. And so if you look at it from above on Google Earth, you can see all the glacial valleys coming around a center point. And so when we have a really tall horn like Mount Assiniboine that really stands out from all the peaks surrounding it, that's when it usually gets called a Matterhorn, because there are hundreds and hundreds of horns across mountain ranges like the Rockies. They're really quite common, but the really tall ones, the ones that really stand out above the rest, are what we assign the name Matterhorn to. And so Mount Assiniboine, I think it's like 11,500 feet, which is one of the highest mountains in the southern Rockies, and it really stands out in prominence above all these other peaks we have out here. I wanted to hop into Google Earth real quick so we can look more at Mount Assiniboine and get a view from every side of the mountain, instead of just the one side that we're seeing now. So, currently we are at this lake looking up at Mount Assiniboine, and from this side it is very, very spiky. Unfortunately, the clouds are about here, so we can't see the very tip of it, but as you can see, it resembles the Matterhorn here, or maybe even the Grand Teton. From other sides, it's actually a lot more flat. and not quite as spiky. This is the side that many of the famous photos are taken from, as well as this side over here, because this big triangular facet is kind of showing. But as you can see, there are many glaciers on all sides of the mountain. The cirque we are looking at here is kind of made up of multiple ones. There's kind of two subsections of a larger cirque here. And then on this side, there's just a massive one that has a lot of glacier still hanging on at the top. And then on the famous side, this is the famous view. You kind of come up on this mountain and look at it this way, across this lake. We have a glacier right below it that's still carving, and here's the big cirque. And then even on this side, it's not really opened up directly below the mountain, but there is a cirque down here, and you can see kind of two bowl-shaped formations here. And most importantly, here on Google Earth, we can see why Mount Assiniboine is a Matterhorn. It's because of the four sides that make it a pyramid. This side here, you can see this face in the shadow. That's one side. The second side is this large flat one here. Third side is this face. And then the fourth side is the one that we can see, the more triangular side here. And these sides are all separated by thin ridges called arêtes, which are formed when two cirques come up next to each other. So here's probably the best example of one right here. Very thin, spiky ridge. And so even though we will only be seeing the one face today, I do really want to come back to Mount Assiniboine in the future and get some of the more iconic views, as well as climb right up below the mountain to get to the base of the pyramid, just about as close as you can get without climbing it. So hopefully I'll be able to do that stuff in the future so you guys can also see the more iconic view on my channel. But for today, we're going to be sticking to what I like to call the spiky side. Now let's head over to this other lake, because I think that one is going to be a little bit more blue. This one is quite blue, but as you can see, there's no glacier at the end of this cirque anymore because we're on the south side of the mountain range. And there is one that's up on that ridge over there, so I think this lake here might be getting supplied with a little bit more sediment, but we'll see. Okay, my prediction was correct. This lake is definitely getting some more glacial sediment because it is a brilliant blue. By far the bluest lake either of us have ever seen. And the nice thing is even when it's cloudy, these lakes still stay so blue. Because clear water kind of turns gray when it's cloudy, but this stuff, it stays blue. Wow. Here's another cirque as well. Woo! There's our cirque. Looks like Gatorade.
Looks so unnatural.
It is actually blowing my mind how blue this is. I was expecting it, but it's still insane. It just seems so unnatural for water to be that color. Neon. Insane. I just wanted to clarify why Mount Assiniboine is part of an extremely rare class of mountains on Earth. As I mentioned earlier, horn formations are actually quite abundant if you know where to look. However, as we discussed, that is only the first criteria to be a Matterhorn. Secondly, the peak must also be very prominent and one of the highest peaks in the local area. And thirdly, and most importantly, it must resemble the original Matterhorn by having a four-sided pyramid shape and a sharp point at the summit. When all of these things come together, that is when a mountain gains the name Matterhorn. Out of the millions of peaks on Earth, only a score of them might fit these criteria, creating a very small class of mountains that are the defining mountains of their region. They are peaks where you just know as soon as you see it, because the combination of those factors is so incredibly striking. That is why Matterhorns are the rarest type of mountains on Earth. Look what I just found. Canadian Rockies are mostly made up of limestone, and here is a fossil. That might even be a trilobite. Not sure though, it's not quite exposed enough. So yeah, all this rock here was deposited on the bottom of an ancient ocean millions and millions of years ago. And now, thanks to a convergent plate boundary, it has been thrust up on top of the North American plate. And now it's up here exposed and eroding for us to enjoy. I really love limestone. It's so fun to find the fossils in it as you walk around. Marine fossils too. We made it back to the trailhead, and best part, no bear encounters. So that was a great hike. I hope you guys learned something about glacial landforms. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Bye.